views expressed on the following program are those of the host and not necessarily those of staff, management, or ownership.
Phoenix, Brother Mike is back on the radio. Welcome to HardcoreChristianity.com. Welcome to the program. Today's Bible study is on sex addiction research. An interesting research study has come out on people who have sex addictions. You won't want to miss this. I'll make a couple of quick announcements while you call somebody and tell them the radio program's on, particularly somebody who you think's having trouble with lust issues. This is something they'll absolutely have to hear today. This is Brother Mike. I'm the professional counselor at the Arizona Deliverance Center. I've been a counselor for going into my 37th year this November, which is now. I start my 37th year as a counselor. Can you imagine that? I know what you're thinking. I'm an older person. That is correct. I am an older person. For 25 of those years, I was a secular counselor, and for the rest of it, I've done nothing but Christian counseling and therapy and deliverance at the House of Healing and the Arizona Deliverance Center. On the website, you'll see all of our ministry services. It's on hardcorechristianity.com. We have 2 live services every week, Thursdays and Fridays at 7 p.m. Both those services are on our YouTube streaming channel. We also encourage you to sign up for the monthly free seminars at the Deliverance Center. We're down on 15th Avenue, just south of Osborne Road, downtown. You can also pick up the archives of the radio programs off the website. You can go to the PayPal button and send us a donation. Thank you very much. And don't forget about Sister Karen selling your home for you or listing it. She's on the home page of the website. May God richly bless you. Sex addictions are, in the secular world, a big debate. Everybody's fighting over it. And you have people on this side that say they're not real, and the people on the other side who say they're real. Same thing with transgender. You have the people on this side that's saying that's ridiculous. It's not true. That the people are not born in opposite bodies. Then you have the people on the other side who are saying, yes, it is a legitimate condition and you need to start treating it in childhood. So there's always controversies in the field of psychiatry and psychology. Of course, that's where I came out of, the secular world of psychology and counseling. But there's a new research study that came out, and they've been doing some interesting research. Right now, based on the latest statistics, these came out just a couple of weeks ago, 10% of men and 7% of women have significant levels of stress and dysfunction related to sexual thoughts or behaviors. Okay, now that is the definition of an alleged sex addiction. Somebody that has a sex addiction, that their thought life and their behavioral patterns are becoming dysfunctional based on it, based on their desire for sex. They took a survey of over 2,000 adults. They found more than 8% of them had compulsive sexual behavior disorder. Compulsive sexual behavior disorder is kind of what they're calling it now. It's a persistent pattern of failure in controlling intense sexual urges, leading to distress, depression, and social impairment. Okay, Janet Dickinson of the University of Minnesota and colleagues wrote in the Journal of American Medical Association. That's called JAMA, is what the name of it is. That's where the doctors get together and they all write research articles. And, obviously a lot of them are credible, and then some of them obviously are not. Quote, from Tiger Woods to Harvey Weinstein, news articles have conjectured that sex addiction is a growing and unrecognized epidemic in America. The scientific community is debating whether the problem even exists at all, but it's not hard to define. Quote, failing to control one's sexual feelings and behaviors in a way that causes substantial distress or impairment in functioning is basically what a sex addiction is. It's the impairment part that matters to the secular world. However, to the Lord, it's much deeper than that. And what they did was they gave these 2,000 people a questionnaire. They asked them things like, how often have you had trouble controlling your sexual urges? How often have you felt unable to control sexual behavior? How often have you made pledges or promises to change or alter your sexual behavior and failed? How often have your sexual thoughts or behaviors interfered with relationships? Distress and impairment associated with difficulty controlling sexual feelings, urges, and behavior. They measured them using the compulsive sexual behavior inventory. And here's what happened. If you scored 35 or higher on a scale of 0 to 65, they claim you have some type of an impairment. When they did the research, they were shocked at how many people scored that high. 40% of them were women. Amazing. Quote, genetic differences were smaller than previously theorized, with over 10% of men and 7% of women endorsing clinically relevant levels of distress or impairment associated with difficulty controlling sexual feelings, urges, and behavior. Translation, looking for Mr. Goodbar. These compulsive behaviors and thoughts are the roots of sexual addiction. Now, the problem is psychiatrists have been fighting over whether or not this is actually a true disorder because it has not been put in the DSM-5. It's not included in there. So they're debating on whether to include it in the next one. They probably will. Some people feel that sex addiction is a myth. It's really just somebody who's selfish, misogynistic. They think that's basically the problem. They're seeing it as a character, integrity, or moral issue. They don't see it as a disorder. Everybody debates upon whether or not this thing's real or not. Now, I've been counseling people with sexual addiction problems for a while now, and I have been working with Christians who have these disorders, those who are spirit-filled, those who are not spirit-filled, doesn't matter. Protestants, doesn't matter. Catholics, doesn't matter. This is an issue that sweeps over everywhere in society. And the Lord showed me that the root cause of this issue is sin and demons. In our society, pornography, like a plague, has literally swept almost the entire planet. There are a few impoverished areas in the world, obviously, that don't have the internet. But the internet and porn, which is the number one user of the internet, is causing a plague of spirits to sweep through the planet. These lust demons enter people usually now in childhood. Children now in grade school are exposed because of the internet to hardcore sex. And when they are exposed, a spirit enters the child's body. And depending upon what kind of spirit it is, you will find someone who has or has the potential to become homosexual, a pedophile, a serial adulterer, or someone who has perverted sexual desires, lesbian, homosexual, bestiality. Depending upon what type of spirit enters the child when they're viewing pornography on their handheld devices or their laptop or whatever it is, you have the potential then of someone developing perverted sexual desires and a potential of a person living a promiscuous lifestyle. The internet is not required, though, for these spirits to enter people's bodies, particularly childhood. They enter almost every child who is sexually abused. If you were sexually abused and your uncle, your dad, your stepdad, your mother, your babysitter, your stepmother, somebody came to you and engaged in masturbation. They masturbated you, you masturbated them. If they engage in oral sex, they performed oral sex on you, you performed oral sex on them. If you had actual intercourse, anally or vaginally, if you're a child and that happened to you, a spirit of rejection and lust entered your body at that moment. And it, now that it's inside your body, will never go away, even if you become a born-again Christian. Demons do not automatically leave when you get saved, just like you don't get automatically healed when you get saved. Hopefully you get delivered and healed later. The prolific expanse of pornography is breeding sex addicts all over the United States. Once these spirits get into your brain, you start to develop compulsive sexual desires and thoughts. These chronic thoughts repetitively move through your mind continuously. All day long, every few seconds, the person has a thought about sex. And after a while, it becomes a disorder and lifestyle impairment, and it becomes a venue to allow other spirits to enter the person's body. The more you engage in sexual sin and watch pornography, and the more you are promiscuous, the more spirits you are picking up from watching the porn and from transfers during intercourse. If you're committing adultery, if you are experimenting with your sexuality, if you're engaging in homosexual acts, doesn't matter whether it's intercourse or oral sex, these spirits transfer into your body and they start to push you to feel things you don't want to feel and do things you don't want to do. They hyperventilate and accelerate your sexual desires, and suddenly, at some point in time, they become compulsive. They become thoughts and dreams and visions and daydreams that you don't want to have anymore. And you're constantly thinking about sex. If this radio program has touched you, regardless of your background, if you are a Christian, a Protestant, or a Catholic, you are eligible for free deliverance and counseling services at the Arizona Deliverance Center, 602-636-5800. The level of depression and sadness sex addiction cause, and the self-loathing and self-hatred of the person that has it, is expanding exponentially here in America because of pornography on the internet. It is the world's Ebola. Come for help now.
The views expressed on this program are those of the host and not necessarily those of staff, management, or ownership. This program was sponsored by Michael W. Smith.